I live alone in a small one-room apartment. Nothing special, just a simple place with peeling paint on the walls, creaky floorboards, and a view of a gray courtyard. The rent is cheap in a quiet neighborhood, or at least it seemed that way when I moved in 6 months ago. At first, everything was fine. I settled in, got used to the solitude, and even started finding a strange comfort in the silence. But in recent weeks, something changed. It started with little things I didn't pay much attention to, but now I realize they were the first signs of something far more sinister. It all began with small details, easy to chalk up to absent-mindedness. One day, I found a kitchen cabinet door open, even though I distinctly remembered closing it before leaving for work. The doors are old, with stiff hinges. They don't swing open on their own. I shrugged it off, figuring I'd just forgotten. Then my keys went missing. I always put them on the shelf by the front door, but that day they weren't there. After some searching, I found them under the couch, inside a cabinet, places they couldn't have rolled to on their own. Oddly enough, I convinced myself it was my fault. Maybe I dropped them in a rush. Then food started disappearing from the fridge. First, it was a can of tuna. I thought I'd eaten it and forgotten. Then a piece of cheese wrapped in foil vanished, foil I hadn't touched. I even started wondering if I was losing my mind or sleepwalking and eating in my sleep. It might have been funny if it hadn't gotten so creepy. A week ago, I came home after a shift and froze at the threshold of my bedroom. The window was wide open. A cold wind stirred the curtains, and beyond the glass stretched a thick, impenetrable night. I never opened the window. It's a habit from childhood, when we lived in a neighborhood where broken windows and uninvited guests were common. I always check the locks, lower the blinds, and turn my apartment into a tight little fortress. But there it was, open, as if someone had left it that way on purpose for me to notice. I tried to find an explanation. Maybe I'd accidentally nudged the latch that morning, or perhaps a maintenance worker had come to fix something and hadn't warned me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. No one had been here. And I don't forget to close the window. It's not in my nature. My heart pounded as I checked the apartment. The cabinets, under the bed, behind the bathroom door. Nothing. Just the cold draft and a nagging feeling that I was being watched. Last night, things got much worse. I woke up around 3 a.m. to a sound. It wasn't the usual household creak of settling wood or wind hitting the walls. No, it was a slow, cautious creak of the floorboards, as if someone was stepping on them, trying not to make noise. The sound came from the living room, beyond the closed door of my bedroom. I lay in the dark, holding my breath, listening. The silence felt thick, almost tangible, but then another creak. Closer this time, as if someone was slowly moving toward my room. Blood pulsed in my temples, my fingers gripping the blanket. I didn't know what to do. Scream, run, or pretend to be asleep. Grabbing my phone, I turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the door. The beam trembled in my hand, but there was nothing to see beyond it. The door stayed closed, just as I'd left it before bed. The silence returned, but it felt unnatural, like someone was hiding, waiting for me to relax. You were just sleeping. It was a dream, I told myself, but my body wouldn't believe it. My legs carried me out of bed on their own. I had to be sure. Flashlight in hand, I checked the apartment, looked in the cabinet, inspected the bathroom, even cracked open the front door. The lock was secure, the chain still in place. The windows were closed. Everything seemed normal. I was about to climb back into bed when I noticed it. In the living room, there's a ventilation grate in the floor. Large, metal, built into the wall. I'd never paid much attention to it. But now, in the shaky light of my flashlight, I saw it was out of place. The edges were slightly bent, as if someone had pried it open and carelessly put it back. My heart skipped a beat. I knelt down, the cold seeping through my pajamas from the floor, and shone the light inside. There was something there. At first, I couldn't make it out, but then the image came into focus, and my stomach twisted into a knot. Inside the narrow vent shaft lay an old, grimy blanket, rolled into a bundle. Next to it, a half-empty plastic water bottle with a crumpled neck, and beyond that, a greasy, yellowed burger wrapper, as if it had been tossed in there recently. I froze, unable to look away. The air caught in my lungs, my mind refusing to process what I saw. Someone had been living in my walls. Someone had been sneaking in here, eating my food, opening my window, moving through my apartment while I slept. All the pieces, missing food, creaking floors, the open window, snapped into one horrifying picture. How long had they been there? Weeks? Months? And why hadn't I noticed sooner? Were they hiding in there right now, staring at me from the darkness of the shaft, holding their breath just as I had moments ago? The thought sent an icy shiver down my spine. I didn't investigate further. I didn't call the police or climb deeper into the vent. I just grabbed my keys, threw a jacket over my pajamas, and ran out of the apartment. My legs carried me down the stairs, across the empty courtyard, to my car. I drove to a friend's place and collapsed on his couch, unable to explain what had happened. He looked at me like I was crazy but didn't press for answers. In the morning, I forced myself to go back. The sun was up, flooding the apartment with soft light, but it didn't make it any less eerie. I walked in, clutching an old baseball bat I'd found in my trunk. The silence was oppressive, almost blinding, as if it were hiding something just around the corner. I approached the vent, ready for anything. The grate was closed, neatly, perfectly, as if no one had touched it. No dirt, no scratches like I'd seen in the night. I knelt down, shone my flashlight inside. Empty. No blanket, no bottle, no wrapper. Just dust and cold metal. I sat on the floor, staring into the dark shaft, trying to figure out if I'd lost my mind. Had I imagined it all? Was it a nightmare so vivid I'd mistaken it for reality? But the smell, a faint, lingering whiff of fast food and dampness, still hung in the air, proof that it had been real. Now I don't know what's worse, that someone or something really lived in my walls, sharing this apartment with me like an invisible neighbor, or that they know I've discovered them, and that they've cleaned up every trace, as if preparing for something new. Every creak in the house now sounds like footsteps, every rustle, like breathing behind the wall. I don't sleep at night, listening, waiting for the shadow in the vent to come alive again. And yesterday, as I passed by the living room, I thought I heard a faint, barely audible sound from the shaft. Not a creak, not a rustle. Laughter. Quiet. Hollow. Like an echo from underground.